So, for some background information, me and my friend are both reasonably scrawny teenage girls. We were camping and it was foggy outside, and it was mid-evening. So my friend and I were hanging out at the beach looking at the sand castles from the competition that took place earlier that day, and we had to use the bathroom and wash the sand off of our feet. So she was washing her feet off, and I was going to the bathroom and I heard the distinct sound of keys jangling. Keep that in mind as I think it's important. So, after I got out of the bathroom, my friend was waiting for me just outside, and I asked if she had seen anyone leave the bathroom, but she had just gotten there apparently. We were just standing around when I heard the keys sound again. I looked up and saw a man. He was in his mid to late 20s, early 30s at the latest. He had extremely greasy blonde hair, sunken eyes, a hoodie on with the hood up over a pretty sketchy looking dude. He circled the bathrooms me and my friend were standing by a few times after that, but he was also watching us when we were in view, which I took note of. My friend still didn't notice. Anyway, a minute or two later, she asked me if I wanted to go sit at a picnic table with her, and I accepted because I wanted to get away from him. So we walked over to the table, but he followed us, and I know because of the keys. We sat at the table and she was talking to her boyfriend on Snapchat, and I was reading over her shoulder as I normally do. But while I was reading with her, I told her that the guy was watching us and about what I noticed before we went to the table. As I was telling her about it, I felt like I was being watched, so I looked over and made direct eye contact with the guy with the keys. After we both gave an awkward smile, he broke eye contact and walked over to another man who I didn't get a look at, and they kept looking at my friend and I. We got up and walked over to the little playground near where we were, and we just kind of talked, but this time she was paying attention to where the guys were. Not even a minute later, the two men walked over to a small patch of woods that had a red car parked nearby. Due to where I was sitting, I couldn't see the men anymore, but my friend could, and she said that the blonde one kept peeking back at us from behind a tree, and the other one was completely out of sight. So we decided to use this to our advantage. We ran over to the little restaurant type thing. This gave us a clear view of them, and them a clear view of us. The blonde guy got into the car with who we believed to be the other guy. Now our fight or flight was kicking in, and we both chose flight. We went behind the restaurant, which was closed. We both ran down the stairs to behind a transport truck that had been there since earlier in the day. My friend looked out from behind the truck and saw the car from earlier, circling around the area, so as soon as it was out of sight, we ran as fast as we could, and thankfully there were other people around, so we calmed down knowing that the guys probably wouldn't come for us with other people there. We made it back to our campsite safely and watched movies and stuff before we went to bed. We didn't see the guys again for the rest of the trip. Now I know that probably wasn't the scariest of encounters, but it left us shaken to the core, because who knows what would have happened if I wasn't always hyper aware of my surroundings. This happened a few years ago. We had just moved to a new city, and I was 11 years old at the time. There weren't any bus routes that came near where I lived, so my mom had to pick me up from school every day and take me in the mornings. The place we lived at the time wasn't the best. I live with my brother now. Things are much safer. We had a lot of gang activity, kidnappings, rapes, etc. Our city was also a majority of people of color, and I was one of the very few white girls. This is relevant because I got a lot of attention for being a petite, short for my age, white blonde girl with blue eyes, from classmates and adults. Mostly a lot of sexual harassment, but for this specific scenario, my mom didn't want to have to drive all the way to school to get me because it was too busy with other parents picking up their kids. She wanted me to walk to a local gas station and wait for her to pick me up from there. We did this often. One of those days I was waiting out front of the gas station for my mom to come and get me. I never really felt safe, so I always stood with my back against the wall and watched people while they got gas. Most of the time, no one ever bothered me. They all had places to be, but one time this adult man walked up to me and asked if I wanted a ride home. I was so surprised and scared that he had come up to me that I didn't even hear what he said. So, I, wanting to be polite, laughed and nodded, and then he really looked pleased and started motioning for me to come back to his car. At this point I realized what he had asked me, and I was getting really nervous because I didn't want to suddenly change my mind and tell him no, but I really didn't want to go with him. He noticed I wasn't following and told me to hurry up and come on. I told him that I actually didn't want to, and I'd be okay because my mom would be there soon, and then he started to argue with me and tell me that it was no trouble and that I really should go with him because I would get home much faster. He even tried to tell me that if I went, he'd stop and get me something to eat on the way home. I tried really hard to tell him I didn't want to go, but he just kept insisting. He was starting to get closer to me. I didn't know if I should run inside the store, but I was too scared to go anywhere. Thankfully, before he could get too close to me, I saw my mom's car parked on the street where she usually waited. I didn't know how long she had been there, but I told him that my mom was here, and I ran to her car and got inside. I told my mom what happened, and she told me it was a good thing I didn't go with him, and that next time I should go into the store if someone bugs me like that. I remember seeing him get into his van while we were driving away, but I never saw him again. Although, about a week later, a kid from my school got into a van with someone, and they're still missing to this day. I found a few other creepy random bonus stories for you guys. I hope you enjoy. And P.S., don't know why I don't receive any stories. There's 28,000 subscribers, about 1,000 views a video. I need some stories, guys. Email me after the video. Mommy told me to never go in the basement, but I wanted to see what was making that noise. It kind of sounded like a puppy, and I wanted to see the puppy. So I opened the basement door and tiptoed downstairs. I didn't see a puppy, and then Mommy yanked me out of the basement and yelled at me. Mommy had never yelled at me before, and it made me sad, so I cried. My mom told me never to go in the basement again, and then she gave me a cookie. That made me feel better, so I didn't ask her why the boy in the basement was making noises like a puppy, or why he had no hands or feet. When I was a child, my family moved to a large, old 2-floor house with big empty rooms and creaking floorboards. Both my parents worked, so I was often alone when I came home from school. One early evening when I came home, the house was pitch black. I called out, "Mom?" and heard her sing-song voice say, "Yes?" from upstairs. I called her again as I climbed the stairs to see which room she was in, and again got the same, "Yes?" We were decorating at the time, and I didn't know my way around the maze of rooms, but she was in one of the far ones, right down the hall. I felt uneasy, but I figured that was only natural, so I rushed forward to see my mom, knowing that her presence would calm my fears, as my mother's presence always does. Just as I reached for the handle of the door to let myself into the room, I heard the front door downstairs open, and my mother call, "Sweetie, are you home?" in a cheery voice. I jumped back, startled, and ran down the stairs to her, but as I glanced back from the top of the stairs, the door to the room slowly opened a crack. For a brief moment, I saw something strange in there, and I don't know what it was, but it was staring at me. I check into a small hotel a few kilometers from Kiev. It is late, and I'm tired. I tell a woman at the desk I would like a room. She tells me room number and gives me a key. But one more thing, comrade. There was one room without a number and always locked. Don't even peek inside. I take the key and go to the room to sleep. Night comes and I hear trickling of water. It comes from the room across the hall. I cannot sleep, so I open the door. It's coming from room with no number. I pound on the door, no response, and I look in the keyhole. I see nothing except red. Water still trickling. I go down to the front desk to explain. By the way, who is in that room? She looked at me and began to tell the story. There was a woman in there, murdered by her husband, skin all white except her eyes, which were red. A woman survivalist and trained outdoors guide who loves to go solo camping returns home after 2 weeks of being in the bush and not seeing a single soul. She develops her disposable camera film to find a roll of film with numerous pictures of her sleeping at night on different nights. She's never gone camping or hiking again. Thank you guys for watching and listening to the video to the end. If you are new to my channel, please do me the biggest favor. Please subscribe for future content, and please send any true scary experiences of yours to me. That way I can feature them on an upcoming video. My email link will be in the description box below at the end of this video. And until we meet again, leave a thumbs up on the video and stay sinful.